next speaker will be Levine.
Well, I think we all come here. I know that all four panelists come here, and probably many of you come here because you're frustrated Democrats. And there's an old saying among we Jews that 2 Jews have 3 opinions. Well, 10 Democrats have 1,000 different opinions. And that's part of, I think, what makes us a strong party is we're willing to see nuance. And I also think that sometimes that harms us. Because most Democrats I know are fairly well informed, are looking at more sides of a question, and we have a hard time with sound bites. I have a hard time with sound bites. I have a hard time, as you're about to hear, I guess, distilling it all down to a few points. But I also am a frustrated congressional staffer. I've served my time for the Judiciary Committee, Homeland Security Committee, and got so upset by what I saw going on that I'm now on the radio talking about it and on TV. But it seems to me that at the end of the day, those with the sound bites are winning. And they're winning because they are labeling us. We are letting the Republican Party label us. I'll give you an example. I saw this on, what was it? What channel was it? It was the History Channel. Think about this. It's the History Channel. This isn't Fox Propaganda Channel. This is the History Channel. I saw Newt Gingrich just a couple days ago on TV. Newt Gingrich, and he was telling us that, Republicans believe in truth and right and wrong, and liberals believe in relativism. They say, well, if you have a culture like the Aztecs that used to throw virgins into the pit and kill thousands of people, that's okay because that's their culture. And he was saying this on the History Channel, and no one was challenging him. And the interviewer was like, oh, Democrats believe in genocide. Very interesting. Oh, tell us more. Really? Really, Newt? And I haven't heard anyone complain about it. This isn't news. What? Front page of the New York Times. Newt Gingrich says Democrats support genocide. I haven't seen that. This is the kind of stuff that goes on every day. I remember, in fact, why couldn't I remember the channel? Because I was in a hotel room, I was skiing, and I was in a hotel room, and I went to look it up, and I thought it was Fox. And then if it wasn't Fox, I thought it was a Christian broadcasting network. It was the History Channel, which I think is nonpartisan, isn't it? The point is that when Newt Gingrich is saying stuff like this, Charles Krauthammer today, what did he say? What did he say? He said this. He said, okay, liberal Democrats, liberal internationalists believe the United States should never go to war without United Nations permission. And I wanted to raise my hand and say, Charles Krauthammer, please name for me one person with that view. Name for me one Democrat, one Green with that view. That the United States, if attacked like we were on September 11th, should never fight back in defense without UN approval. But he created that straw man and then went to destroy it. And there may be 1% of Americans with that view, but that's not the mainstream Democratic Party view. We believe if we're attacked, we defend ourselves. So they are labeling us. They are telling, the Republicans are not only labeling themselves, they're labeling us. And they also create the agenda. Think back to the Clinton years, right? What was the most important issue in the Clinton years? Well, we had a huge surplus. We had huge prosperity, wages were up, inflation was down, unemployment was down, we had no particular wars to speak of. Oh yes, I remember, the biggest issue of the Clinton years. He had sex in the White House with someone that wasn't his wife. That was the most important issue facing our nation. Did Clinton define that issue? No. Now how did the Republicans define that issue? Let's think back how they did it, right? Okay, we have Richard Mellon Scaife, who spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the Arkansas Project to find dirt on Clinton. They found a woman named Paula Jones. She didn't want to become public. They paid her to do a lawsuit. And they made this the national agenda. The most important issue of the 90s. What Clinton was doing, committing adultery. Now, I've heard the rumors. George Bush Sr. committed adultery, right? I've heard about Eisenhower. I've heard about Jack Kennedy. We know it's true about FDR. It's true about Martin Luther King. But are those the most important things that we remember about them? No. No, because others didn't set the agenda. Look at most recently. What's the most important issue facing America? Is it some guy in Minnesota, some kid kills Tenet's classmates, that got no news. No, the most important issue was Terry Schiavo, right? That was the most important issue facing America. We're torturing people in Iraq and around the world. We send people to be tortured. We have a special plane, a jet, just to send our people off to Egypt and Saudi Arabia to be tortured. But no, the most important issue is Terry Schiavo. And the Republicans are defining it as, and I had a Republican on my talk show, and he said gleefully, "You just can't wait to pull the plug on that woman, can't you?" And I said, let's see, I don't advocate murder, and I think it should be her decision, not the government's. And the irony about the whole Terry Schiavo case is that the Democrats were afraid, as they often are, that this would be an issue that would do them badly, so they disagreed with Congress overruling a state court, which happens to be against the Constitution, but Republicans have not really respected the Constitution for several years, but it is against the Constitution what they did. And for you Democrats, my old boss, Barney Frank, I give him credit, fought against it, but everyone else was afraid, you're trying to kill this woman, without going into the real issues, which is the court found that's what she wanted. And I don't need to be sidetracked on the Terry Schiavo case. My point is this. I think the Democrats need to reach into their heart and speak the truth. And I know this sounds so simple and obvious, but Howard Dean was right. When it's fine. And when you see something's wrong, you gotta call it what it is. And I think the Democrats are afraid they're a minority party, and they're running scared. And I think when you run scared, people see it. They smell fear. People want to support a winner. And when the President of the United States is lying to you, you shouldn't be afraid to say, the President of the United States is lying to you. Let me give you one last example. Actually, two last examples, and I'll sit down. One, a recent poll that I found very interesting. They polled Bush supporters. And they said, what percentage of you believe that we found weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Or that Iraq had a significant, strong weapons of mass destruction program? What percentage of people who voted for George Bush believe that? 75%. Very good. Then they did another poll, and they said, Bush supporters, how many of you believe Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11, actually directed 9/11, or was in leagues with Al-Qaeda to direct 9/11? 72%. This is all Americans who voted for Bush, 72%. That's not the kicker, folks. Here's the kicker. They asked Bush supporters, if Iraq did not cause 9/11, and if Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, how many of you Bush supporters would be opposed to the war in Iraq? 58%. A majority of Bush supporters, if they actually knew the truth, would not have supported the war in Iraq. That, to me, was an amazing statistic. And do not ever doubt the power of a mass lie, right? Just read Joseph Goebbels. It's actually easier to fool people with a big lie than a little one, as Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist, wrote. Because with a little lie, oh, well, you can show it's wrong. 2 + 2 does not equal 5. A big lie is much harder to disprove. I can tell you it's national policy to torture people. I can give you examples. I can give you directives. I can give you memos. Our president says it's not true. And yet, he doesn't punish anyone that sent these directives and did these memos. Alberto Gonzalez gets a promotion, right? He promotes them. Only the low grunts on the ground get punished. And they say, this general told me to do this, General Sanchez. No punishment, right? Did we make a mistake on September 11th? Every American seems to think it's a mistake. But George Tenet got the Medal of Freedom. The president thinks he did nothing wrong. Or Tenet's hiding something for the president. We can talk about that later. But my point is this on the Democratic Party. You've got to call a spade a spade.